And we welcome you in. It's time. Yes, it is. 3 guys before the game. Thanks so much for being with us. If you're scoring at home, it's episode 116. And if you've listened to all 115 of the previous episodes, you're a special person. Thanks so much for being with us. We're making history today. Yes, we are. For the first time in the history of 3 guys before the game, we are joined by a standing West Virginia head coach. And we've had past, we've had future kids on, recruits, we did the whole thing, but a current WVU head coach, and we're delighted to be joined in studio by WVU soccer coach Nikki Izzo-Brown. The Senator is here as well, and today's program is being brought to us in part by the good folks at Wheeling Island Hotel, Casino, and Racetrack. We're coming up quickly on June the 14th. Mini Kiss, the hottest, littlest band in the world, is coming to the showroom at Wheeling Island. For ticket information, $15, available through the Wheeling Island gift shop or through Ticketmaster. And I'm sure Nikki grew up listening to Kiss. When you I mean, that was probably right in your window, right?
Yes.
I figured.
I don't want to say that I loved Kiss, but
Right.
it was definitely up my alley.
I just remember that on the back of all their albums, it always said, Kiss uses Gibson guitars and Pearl drums. Just remember that. Whatever little marketing. She's with us. Senator, we got her. I mean, history.
Well, and if we're going to start with a sitting or standing head coach, then it makes perfect sense to go one of the most successful ones, not only currently, in the history of WVU athletics.
Yes. And truth be told, she didn't know this was on video. So that is perfect for us, which tells us that she doesn't watch or listen.
Correct.
So she's got no idea what we're about to get ourselves into. And I just said before we started, and she was fine with it, I would just said, we're just going to kind of go through, well, your life. And we're just going to kind of pick around, and you're a good person to do it with because you've got a personality, you've got a sense of humor, you've got toughness, and you got all the ingredients. And not only is she the first current head coach on this program, but you're the most senior head coach at West Virginia University.
And that means the oldest. Thank you.
No, but not chronic. I mean, there's other coaches that are older than you, but yeah, by seniority. So you just finished 22, and this will be 23?
This was my 23rd
You just
season.
finished 23. This will be 24.
Yep.
So we're coming up on quarter of a century as a head coach.
Unbelievable.
There's no way you thought that when you took the job, right? There's no way you thought you'd be here 25 years.
Never. You never. You always have long-term goals, but not 25 years. You just don't think that much ahead. And it's kind of funny. I'll go out and with a jacket on, and I'll be like, girls, this jacket is older than you, because I can't part with favorite jackets. So I'll be like, this is older than you, my boots. And they're like, I'm like,
She's the Bill
I was just
Snyder
thinking
of
the same
women's
thing.
soccer.
Do you know that story? So Bill Snyder, the Kansas State, former Kansas State coach, like he got a bowl jacket and he would wear it like
For years.
after, like people were going, why does he have like the 1987 cotton bowl jacket on? But that's what it is. So
It's
you're
me.
You do that, yeah?
I can't tell you what label it is that I wear, but my father bought me this real sentimental jacket, and it's amazing because growing up in Rochester, New York, we have
champion.
Yep, we have all sorts of weather. So, but this jacket will repel any kind of weather. So I haven't departed with this coat. So yes, maybe I'm Schneider, but man, I love this coat. And until the Nike police find me, I'm wearing it.
She covers that label up there. So you mentioned Rochester. So that's where you were raised. So let's get into the specifics of it. Technically Rochester, or were you in Irondequoit, Henrietta? Where were you?
I was around a coin.
You were Irondequoit.
Yeah.
Okay. And for those that don't, excuse me.
That was very self-serving. You only did that to show her, as she's known you for 3 decades. She knows you know the area. You didn't have to give every suburb there.
Well, no, I wasn't trying to do that to show that I'm from around that area. I'm showing that because people always say, where are you from? Well, I'm from Rochester. But then you go, okay, really, where are you from?
Okay, fine. Continue.
So the whole thing is Irondequoit, got it. Parents from there, how'd they get to Rochester?
They were born there.
But they were born, so they're people. They're there too. So they're locked in.
They're locked in. They're Kodakers and
Were they Kodakers?
Xeroxers.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
Well, my mom was a teacher, but yeah, that used to be the
Oh, my gosh.
The reason why.
I was talking to my sister this past weekend. My sister's been at Kodak for over 35 years. When she started there, 65,000 employees in Rochester and Kodak. 65,000. And I said to her last week, I said, how many now? 1,200.
Wow.
And she's still there. She's last man standing. Last man standing.
Almost
like my
literally.
jacket.
Yeah, 1,200 people. Think about what that would do to your economy. And Xerox, you mentioned Xerox.
Yeah.
Xerox, same kind of a presence, and just gone. But anyway.
Yeah.
So you're Rochester people. So you grow up, and it's cold, and it's damp, and despite the fact that they call it the Flower City, it's got an edge to it, but it's got a really good edge. I mean, people are good quality. They're like West Virginia. Good quality, family type people. That's what you were raised in. Middle class.
Yeah. I mean, I think you mentioned that I was tough. We were a very blue collar family. Why I fit so well, I believe, in West Virginia is because the people that I grew up with are very similar to the people of West Virginia. Just really high quality people and down to earth, but huge character.
Brothers, sisters?
Older brother that beat me up every day to make sure that I was tougher than any other girl on the street. That's for sure.
So 2 kids. Was dad tough? Your dad was a tough guy. So was he a Western New York tough guy? Was he kind of like, hey,
yes,
well, hey, there's 38 inches of snow, so get out there, let's shovel.
Yeah.
Was he that guy?
He was, and he had the biggest hands you could ever imagine a human being having. And every time he'd mention something for me to do, I just look at these hands and go, I better get out there because they're coming.
So he's a tough guy. That's good. Mom's a teacher. And so you're in that education mode right from the beginning. And despite the fact what the weather is, you just went outside and you just did stuff. It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
You're going to do what you do. And how long before they dip your toe into the start of your athletic career? How old are you?
Oh, gosh. Whatever my brother did, I did. So, running around, I don't even know what age we started. It was not nearly as young as nowadays, but, I remember running around in a ponytail. I was probably 10 years old, if not a little younger.
Because you didn't have the opportunities that exist today.
Oh, God, no. I talk to my team all the time about it. When I decided to go to University of Rochester, there were 75 Division I, II, and III soccer programs in the country. That's it. Right now, there's over 356 just Division I. So Title IX hit, bam. If my brother did it, I had to do it. I participated with anything and everything.
You do? Well, okay, so basketball,
Softball,
soccer.
And my brother was a big wrestler, and my dad was a big boxing fan.
I had big hands.
Big hands.
Yeah.
So, in the basement, we'd have this speedball. I'm not kidding you. And we would just be, I would try to do that, and then the punching bag. I mean, literally, I've been teaching my daughters from a young age how to properly punch, right? They need to.
Absolutely.
So that's...
How long before you were identified as having above average skills?
I was just a really good athlete. I could do, and you kind of laugh about it, but I could just do anything and pick it up and do it. I wasn't the best at everything, but it's funny to see that you could just pick up a sport and go with it. If I picked up a tennis racket, I could play. Was it great? No. Was I, Steffi Graf? Absolutely not. But I could at least participate. So I always kind of knew I was athletic. And back then you were a tomboy. So I could always, just run around, and I just wanted to compete and be part of something.
So there's only 75 schools in the country that are playing college soccer at all divisions. University of Rochester obviously is one of them. You go there and stay home. Did you have any other options to go play somewhere else?
Yeah. So of course, the Ithacas, the William Smiths, the Cornell, and then University of Buffalo. So it was very local back in the day. Like Syracuse didn't even have women's soccer back
How'd they
then.
know about you? Just because of the high school? They saw you. So there was no nothing. There wasn't the developmental teams. It was all straight high school.
It was all straight high school.
Yeah. And so you decide to stay home, and you become an All-American at Rochester. And how long did it take you to have your for you to be identified at that level at Rochester? Did you struggle at all, freshman, sophomore, or was it right from the beginning you were rolling?
Academically or athletically?
Both.
Both. I think academically it was a very challenging university.
That's a good school.
It's a really good school.
Yes, it is.
It's a think tank. There's tremendous students there. So that was, I think I was in the wrong classes too, calculus. But,
that just hurt my head.
Yeah. But, soccer wise, definitely, you kind of walked into that program and everybody was off the best of their high school team, and you had to figure it out. So I think my freshman year was definitely a transition year. I didn't start, but I participated and I gave the team, really I moved positions because everyone wants to be the 10, the center mid. And then my coach said, could you be an outside back? I said, absolutely. And then I changed positions and then started from, maybe I did start my freshman year. I think I changed positions and then started my freshman year.
As a coach now, when you see freshmen come in, do you sometimes look at them if they're struggling a little bit and go, there's a little Nikki? I know what you're going through.
Yeah, I think, yes. I think because I'm so old, I don't know if they look at me like that anymore. I mean, I'll talk, but if I show them that I have skill, then they'll listen. If I do a rainbow at practice, they're like, I'm like, yeah, I'm not, I'm maybe.
It's still in there.
It's still in there.
Yeah.
It shocks me too. I'm like, wow, I can still do that. But, I think that, if you talk their language, then it's, more of an understanding or they relate better, but they look at my age and go, oh, that's just a mom now,
So at Rochester, when did it start to dawn on you that you want to coach?
My college coach, I was just talking about this throughout your career. You're so grateful to different people that helped you. And Terry was an incredible coach. He was a man's man, but a woman's man, and he kind of brought me in and said, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. I want to further my education, but I have no idea. He said, I think you'd be a really good coach. And I'm like, really? You think so?
So this was when? Senior
this
year?
My senior
Prior
year.
to senior
no,
year? Or?
Senior year. I mean, I always, twisted my arm to work camp and to do side camps with him because he knew, I was pretty good with youth kids, but also he had such passion for the game. So maybe he identified that a little sooner than later.
But you wouldn't have necessarily realized that until it was said to you, or was it kind of batting around back?
Would have never
entered your mind.
If
he said that was the trigger.
He put me on my path.
Huh.
I 100% know that I would have never gotten to coaching if it wasn't for Terry Gurnett.
Wow. What's his last name?
Gurnett.
What was your degree in?
Psychology and business.
Okay.
And then I got my MBA.
So, wow. So he says, you should be coach, and that lit the bulb.
Mm-hmm.
You graduate, you're done. And so you go, okay, how do I start this thing? Well, I want to continue my education. So the first thing you do in coaching is you become a graduate assistant. Mm-hmm. So how does this translate? Now, here comes West Virginia.
Yeah. So it's just sometimes you're not that it's necessarily ignorant, but so at that time, there's all these programs popping up and, you have the NCAA.org or it was a newspaper back then.
Right. Yeah.
And there's all these head coaching jobs. And here I am thinking, I was just having this conversation, thinking right out of college, I could go coach, and do this. This was kind of my, my thought process. I kind of giggle now because it's so encompassing. But anyways, and, I wasn't getting hired, shocking. And then I applied to this graduate assistantship at West Virginia Wesleyan to get my MBA. And Mindy Quigg, another person in my journey that I'm extremely grateful for, hired me and took a chance on me as her graduate assistant. And just had a great experience with her. And then Mindy decides to go to Ithaca. It's a very weird kind of triangle.
She went back
here.
into your area.
Yeah, she goes back to my area, and then they hire me as the head coach at Wesleyan.
2 years in.
2 years in.
Stop. What did you know about West Virginia when you're sitting in Rochester and you find out there's a school called West Virginia Wesleyan and they've got a GA ship open?
Nothing. So the funny story is this: is my parents drive me down, and as soon as we pull up, my mom's like, "It's a Methodist school." And I go, is there something wrong with that? You're Catholic. I'm like, is there something wrong with that?
That's classic Rochester right there, too.
Total classic Italian mother.
Oh, yeah.
Catholic.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I'm like, Mom, it's okay. Don't worry. It's going to be fine. Not that she's not judgmental at all, but it was just, that stuck to me like, well, what am I doing? Wait. So I remember them dropping me off. And
Had you gone to Catholic school?
No.
Okay.
No,
fine.
I never went to parochial school.
Okay.
I was a public product.
Yeah, okay.
But it's just funny, how Italian Catholics
I totally get it.
operate
Yeah, totally
a little
get it.
bit back then. And, they all nested in Rochester. I'm the first to venture out.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of threw my mom a little bit, as they're throwing all sorts of food in my fridge and making sure I'm eating properly, Italian sausage, sauce, meatballs, all that. But anyways.
Yeah. So you get to Wesley and you look around and they go, okay, you're going to be a GA here.
Yeah.
And it lasts just 1 year.
Yeah. And the funny part is, with the evolution of my profession, I thought I had the best position possible. I got a free sandwich. I get this big sub. It's probably 12 inches long. I'm like, okay, well, I have to hoard this the whole day because, I didn't have much money. And then I had my education paid for, but I had to obviously pay rent. This is a funny story. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'll take a loan or I'll do camps to finish that out. Well, the residential life coordinator, which is the head of RAs, approaches me because I have a great heartbeat. And he goes, hey, would you be interested in being an residential life coordinator? He's the director. And I said, what is that? And he goes, well, basically, you organize RAs, and you would live in the dorm and just kind of stay organized and help the RAs and keep, basically be a mom of a dorm. And I said, I don't know. I've never been an RA. He goes, well, you get an extra $2,000. Sold. I'll be an RA. So I got a free sandwich.
Free rent,
and a free education. I thought I was, living
golden.
large.
And Wesleyan was good, and your coach leaves and goes to Ithaca.
Yeah.
How long after she left do you find out that they're going to offer you the head coaching job at Wesleyan?
I don't even know if they offered it to me. I think they just said, you're the next head coach at Wesleyan.
Did you want it? Did it even enter your mind that you could get it? How's that conversation come up?
And again, Mindy, I was so grateful for her because she gave me a lot of responsibility. She did not micromanage whatsoever. So I was like, okay, here's my thought process. I could do this, not realizing, that I couldn't.
Beautiful to be naive, isn't it?
It is. I was so naive, and I think about that. Well, wait till what happens. I know it's coming next. Talk about being naive. But anyways, yeah.
How much they pay you at Wesleyan to be the head coach?
Oh, God. I still have my WVU paycheck, but shoot. It maybe $15,000.
Right. And but you thought you were probably living large.
Living large again with my.
A year earlier, you were just hoping for a free sandwich. Now they're giving you $15,000.
Man.
Did you keep the RA gig, or did you have to give that up?
No, I was out. I didn't like that job. Props to all those RAs and RLCs, but that wasn't my gig.
Yeah, it's a different world. And guess what you do? You go right out, and you're successful.
Mm-hmm.
First season.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about that? I mean, it was like, did anyone ever tell you that when you're a new coach, you're not supposed to win right off the bat?
Nope. I told you, naive. I guess that's the motto of this conversation. I was so naive back then, but you just work hard and just that's all you can control. That's all I thought about.
You were relatively the same age as the kids you were coaching.
Another funny story. So when I went to Wesleyan, it was Division II and NIA dual affiliated. So the goalkeeper was 31 years old on the men's team. And I'm thinking, 23, this is weird. Yeah.
You were 23.
Yeah. Or 20. I mean, when I started, it was 22. But yeah, it was wild. I'm thinking, he's like 31 years old. Yeah.
Then the phone rings again.
Yep. Kitty Blakemore.
Kitty Blakemore, the legendary coach at West Virginia who created the WVU women's basketball program and then became an administrator at WVU. She rings you up on the telephone. How did she hear about you?
I mean, I just think, again, she probably just saw some success, that we were having down at Wesleyan. And I think Kitty was trying to promote women in the sport, too. And obviously there wasn't a lot of programs, but a lot of women coaching either. So she called me up and offered me an interview, and another person that I'm grateful for.
I should say this. Nicest, like if you have the top 3 nicest people you'll ever meet in your life, Kitty Blakemore, she's in top 3.
Has to be.
And constantly, no one ever goes. She'll never go under 3. She could be 1. Nicest lady you've ever want to meet.
Her and the Pope, right?
Absolutely.
If we knew him.
I mean, seriously, just unbelievable.
But that's a different kind of call. Because that's not just, hey, we've got an opening here. This is, hey, we've got an opening. Would you like to be the head coach? And oh, by the way, you're starting the program from scratch.
Yeah.
We don't have a program. You're starting it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what went through your head when you got that? So same thing. Did you just
Naive.
say, yeah, okay, yeah, let's go?
Yeah, let's just, okay. Yeah, this is how naive I am. So I go in the interview, I get to meet all these special people. Ed passed along, Roger Jeffries. I could throw so many names out there that people, would really like to relish on. But anyway, so they end up hiring me, and I go to report to work, and I go, okay, well, where's my office? And they're like, what do you mean? And I go, what do you mean? What do I mean? Where's my office? They're like, oh, I didn't even ask on the interview process to see my office. So I was so fortunate, and I know this guy next to me can talk about my office, that I was in an old first aid office that had a sink and a mirror, and I shared it with the men's tennis coach. I was like, this is great. Two of us. It was literally, I don't even know what the measure, maybe 10 by 20. And I thought, again, wow, this is great. Naive.
Wow.
I didn't even have a pencil. Yeah.
Nikki, what blows my mind on that is, how do you start something?
What's the first, right? Job. It's not just, all right, I gotta put a system in. I gotta
meet my.
What do you do first? What was your checklist, and how'd you even know what you were doing?
So to give credit where credit's due. So there was a club team. So there's a club team, and Michelle Hoffman at the time, she was probably another person I should talk about being grateful for, because she really pushed when Title IX needed to happen and WVU needed to be compliant. Michelle was the president of the club team, so she pushed Eddie a little bit to go, don't go softball, don't go rowing, go women's soccer. Mm-hmm. So Michelle, I ended up hiring as my graduate assistant. So that was probably another smart move that I made, because then that gave me that resource of the club team. So at least there were active bodies here. And then gave them an opportunity to participate with the varsity team if that's what they wanted to do.
Facilities-wise, were you practicing at that time?
Oh. We were practicing over with Don Nealon at football. So that's where we were. And then for preseason, because, you needed to use the facility so much. And then, of course, there's men's soccer. We were out at Laurel Point.
Wow.
Now, back then, Laurel Point, the girls we'd have to, so as a coach, you'd drive a van, both coaches, myself and Jen Dupre, we'd be driving vans out there. And they just, and I probably have the terms wrong, but it used to be an old mining shaft area.
It's reclaimed mine area, yeah.
Okay. So you would leave the field and you'd still have this black stuff on your legs. So I'm sure it was really healthy for me. So now we all know.
And it felt like it was 4 hours out there.
Oh,
right? When you're going out there, you almost thought you were lost at
absolutely.
times, right? You're like, where
There's
am I going?
No question. And
right.
And I think to myself, these student, and you can't hold this generation to what it used to be, back in the day,
right.
I'd have to put the team on my back and carry them to Laurel Point.
So you would van drive them over to Laurel Point?
Yeah, we would personally van drive them. And
get out of the thing. Okay, now we're going to practice.
Mm-hmm. Now let's roll, let's practice. And, Laurel Point, oh gosh. And they were wonderful out there, the soccer community out there. So I was very fortunate that I had a great relationship with them, that even they cut the lawn for us out there, the field or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned Jen Dupre, so I forgot. I didn't realize she was on your first staff.
Yeah.
She's a Rochester girl.
Yep.
So you just kind of got with your comfort zone and said, okay, come on, let's go over here and do this
My
thing.
college roommate.
Oh, I didn't know she was your college
roommate.
Yeah, we played
together, yeah.
Did not know that.
Yeah, and then she married off.
Yeah, she did. She married the head basketball coach there at Drexel.
Heard of him.
Yeah, Zach Spiker. Exactly right.
Those Spikers.
Those Spiker, yeah. Okay, so here's the next piece of this equation. So when you start a program, okay, maybe you did inherit some kids. How many kids, two-part question. How many kids did you keep from club? How many kids, any idea how many you recruited your first year?
Oh, geez. Okay. Yes, I got another story. So I probably kept 5.
Okay.
Probably 5 that wanted that commitment. I remember doing an official visit just with me, and there had to be 16 kids and myself on this visit. And it was just wild. And I'm thinking, this is crazy. To keep all these kids.
You brought 16 kids on the
16
campus, and you
kids,
said,
and
this
we're
is
just
West
in
Virginia.
a van, and we're just kind of, I'm learning it myself, and wild. Just walking them down High Street and just trying to kill time because there was nothing. There's nothing to show them.
You didn't have a field,
We didn't have a
really. You didn't
field.
have a practice facility.
I didn't want to take them out to Laurel Point.
Didn't want to show them your office.
One thing, just think of Morgantown. I mean, right? There wasn't a lot going on in Morgantown back in 95, 96.
And what was it? Began with a P.
Pargos.
Pargos.
It was about your only choice. You had the Beanery or Pargos. Pargos was big. Yeah.
I mean, how many times can you go to Pargos?
Oh, well, a lot, as we did.
Now Chick-fil-A. But here's the interesting piece to the equation. So you go out, you have your first season. When you have your first season of a team that was just created, you're not supposed to have a winning record. And you did.
No.
So right off the bat, you guys have a winning record.
Yeah.
Well, how are we doing there?
It was just a mentality. I mean, there was no expertise other than we're going to compete, and we're going to compete as hard as we can because that's the only thing we can control. And I mean, I evolved as a coach. I think back a lot and go, gosh, I was terrible back then.
In what way?
And just, I think, well, nowadays, of course, everybody changes, but I think just how I approach the game, and I think I'm a little bit more educated on how to teach better and more efficiently, and I grew in my career, but, I would never do it again.
But you won, but were you even thinking about, I mean, there was so much to do to just field the team to get on the field. Were you even thinking about winning, or was it just, we got to get everybody out here and just get it going and we'll take it from there?
My biggest strength and my biggest weakness is I'm so competitive. So I'm going to just say, I don't know what else happened, but I know on game day, I just wanted to win. So I think, that was probably the leading, I always led with that. Like, no matter what, we're going to do everything we can to compete. So, yeah.
That factored in, though. I assume that got down the roster to the girls that they said, hey, we're not just happy to be here. We're going to go try and win the thing.
Yeah. And, and I remember probably naive, but my one moment, we were in the hotel room after UConn spanked us 11-0. Now in soccer, that's like
it's like 77 to nothing in football.
77 to nothing.
Maybe more.
And I sat in that hotel room and said, I do not know what I'm doing. I have no idea what I'm doing. Now UConn just went to a Final Four. Notre Dame then turns around and beats us 10-0. They just won a national championship.
That was probably Len Santeris there at UConn.
Yeah. Lenny whooped on me.
That was a disingenuous name drop right there.
Yeah, good job. That was good.
Just totally disingenuous.
Yeah.
Okay, but here's the deal. You go 10-7 your first year, and you go 500 in the Big East, 4-4-1. Next year out, you go 11-6, 4-6-1 in the league. Next year, 11-6 again and 2, 4-5 in the league. And then your fourth year in, you go 500, 9-1. You have a down year. You go 2-4 in conference. And then
hot seat.
Yeah, hot seat. Gonna get rid of it. Then the next year, after going 500, you go to the NCAAs for the very first time, and it only took you 5 seasons to get to the NCAA tournament. You go 15-6, and then you go, as far as the league goes, you start to go. You finish second in the Big East in 01. You win the Big East in 02. You finish second in 03, third in 04, but your records are going 18 wins, 17 wins, 15 wins. And you're rolling, and you just start this run of NCAA tournaments. You go consecutively to the tournament. You don't miss a beat. You win the Big East championship. In 07, you get to the quarters of the NCAA tournament. In 08, you go to the round of 32. In 09, the round of 32. And in 10, you win the Big East tournament again. You get to the Sweet 16. You go 18-5, 9-1 in the league. And then you do the same thing again. The next year, you go 17-5. You come in first place regular season. You win the tournament championship. So it cooks. And if you look at it numerically right now, that's just it's unrealistic. It's abnormal for what you guys were able to do. So the question I'm sure you get all the time, and then I'm really going to press you here to get an answer. Why were you able to have that success?
Well, you recruit the right people.
How'd you know how to recruit?
I think, high character people, highly competitive people. Obviously, I didn't recruit all the right people. You make mistakes all the time. Coaches will always talk about that. And I think Brad asked me this question. I remember going, okay, in 4 years, I want to make the NCAA tournament. So what I grew up with at Rochester was national championship. I went to a national championship. We won the league. We won all the time. So I had this culture inside of me, and I still have it. And I have to kind of hold myself back a little bit, because when you don't win, like, I still think I'm a failure because we have not won a national championship. And that's the mindset. And that is very delusional, because to feel success because you just win a national championship is not fair. That can't drive you all the time.
That's what coaches say.
When did that come in, though? You didn't have national championship year one. Do you remember a year when it moved to that level that, hey, I got to win a natty or I'm bummed out? Can you pinpoint it?
I think after probably a second or third Big East championship when we beat Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, oh my gosh, that was like, if you want to drink a bottle of champagne or just kind of cry and whatever, is probably when we finally beat Notre Dame. I had so much respect for that program. They won national championships. They did everything the right way. And when we finally beat them, I was like, wow. So I finally wowed myself and said, okay, we're doing something of importance here. Of course there was unbelievable kids I was part of and, families I was part of. So there's all that.
But that's when you could really see that,
that's
okay, hey, we can win one here.
Hey,
we got it.
Hey, yeah.
We're right there.
And I remember also when you talked about Lenny, I remember Lenny came in the day of a game. So you guys know now the recovery and all that. It was even unheard of back then. So he flew in the day of the game. Those girls were getting taped the day of the game and eating peanuts on the taping table. So that's how much respect we did not have.
Yeah.
And we whooped on them. And I was like, they're eating peanuts in the locker room. They don't respect you.
So you seized on that.
I seized on it. But, and to Lenny's, and I love Lenny, to Lenny's credit, we didn't show him that we couldn't do anything. But lay down. So that was another moment. I was like, okay, Lenny, I remember that 11-0, but now you're going to eat those peanuts.
Here, Lenny. You got your little salted cashews right here, buddy.
Yeah.
You mentioned the biggest key in recruiting is high character, competitive people. Is that something that you had to learn? How do you qualify someone when you sit down with them and start talking and know they've got that special intangible?
I think it boils down to, hey, you want to play Uno? When you guys play board games at home, how do you feel? Because you'll see it. You'll see it with kids. You'll see it. Hey, if you were playing pickup and you lost a pig game, how do you feel? So it would be there, and you talk to the coaches, of course. You see them on the field, and then I'd see how they were with their parents.
What do you look for there?
If they're respectful, if they try to open a door, if they look to their parents to speak first, if they respond to their parents right away with respect.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they're not respecting their parents, they're not going to respect Nikki Izzo-Brown. I could tell you that much.
Yeah, absolutely true. Boy, it goes by fast, doesn't it?
It's so fast.
Huh?
I can't even believe it.
When
you were going through all those games, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, you
feels like 8 years ago, not 23.
Oh my gosh. But it's also, there were so many special people along the way, and that's what I credit a lot to. Yeah, I have to push the train and lead the train, but there's so many people along the way.
Talk about that for a second, because you've had incredible consistency among your staff.
Yeah.
You mentioned Hoffman and Jen Duper.
Yeah.
Nikki Goodnow was with you for a long time. She leaves. Lisa Stoya rolls in. Marissa rolls in. And you've had that staff together. That's obviously invaluable recruiting, day-to-day running of the program. So your staff, it's credit to you. You've kept so consistent. But how have you done that?
Well, what I knew, what I know, how I run things, it's like a big Italian family, right? So we were so dysfunctional, but so loving and so nurturing and so hard but soft, but
loyal, obviously, right?
Loyal, strength, weakness of mine. So I just hopefully I've lured him into that family, and there's only two choices.
That's
If you're gonna leave.
That's the greatest line ever. So dysfunctional and so loving. I mean, you could just say that any better. I mean, that's just what it is.
It is, and I'm so thankful and grateful that they have such connection to the family. But hopefully, they feel that, and the kids feel that when they come through the program.
What's the hardest challenge of getting the highest elite level recruit nowadays? How much has it changed with social media?
Oh, it's so hard. I mean, yes, I think there is a lot of ego involved.
That didn't exist in the past.
Right. And this is one thing I talk a lot about. When I talk about being grateful, I always want to talk about being grateful because I do think that's something that is getting lost in these generations.
Mm-hmm.
When I played, I wore a men's jersey that didn't fit properly. I probably rolled those shorts 16 times, maybe 20, because I'm a little nugget. And the short sleeve jersey went down to my wrists. So I'm grateful now that Nike has a woman's cut, and I think nowadays this athlete, especially a women's athlete, they have all these incredible choices. So I want to promote the choices, but I also think if they don't get it at West Virginia, they could get it wherever else because there's just so much opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So I think with that, it gets harder because everybody has so much to offer.
Yeah. As you said, when you started off, there were 75 schools playing in all three divisions, and now everybody's got a team.
Yep.
How much do you think about the national championship game?
I finally can sleep at night and, sleep through the night. I think that, that was hard because, again, I would, and Tony, maybe you heard me say it. I said, I truly believe that at West Virginia we can win a national championship. So that's my word. That's the only thing I have to back myself up with. And that would have been everything to me to finally say, look, guys, I told you we were going to do it.
Oh, man.
Have
you watched the tape much?
Yes and no. I haven't recently, but you watch the tape and we played well.
It was just the penalty. It was the beginning. That was it. That was the whole game.
And it's so
you guys, by the way, your game is the most.
Yeah.
If there's a game that was going to cause someone to go crazy, it would be soccer.
It is.
Don't you agree with that? Seriously, of all games, I don't know if there's another of all games, all sports. There's no sport more unfair than soccer, because you could do 99% of the things that you should do to be the winning team, and you could lose.
Yeah, and to credit USC, I mean, I don't want to discredit them and what they did and what they accomplished. And, I want to celebrate their success. But, there were so many of my colleagues that were like, oh, my, that you were the best team in the country and you just didn't win the national championship.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, we didn't. So that's hard, and you want to prepare your team and, do that. But, it's tough. It's still tough to think about. Oh, and I get it all the time in my house. I mean, my kids are relentless about that.
Seriously.
Oh, you didn't win that. And
oh, my goodness.
Oh, yeah. They pick on me all the time. It's dysfunctional there, too.
She said she was tough. She had to be tough, right?
But it's true. It's true.
Well,
Tough
maybe, I mean, in all seriousness, maybe it helps you. Maybe it helps you, like, okay, if you don't bring it up, then it kind of lives off to the side and haunts you. If you're talking about it, it's kind of like, maybe, hey, West Virginia lost the basketball national championship here in 1959 by a single point. You talk to people today, it's like the game happened last night.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, no matter where you go in the state, I just remember Jerry ran out of time. Just remember Jerry. That's 1959.
Isn't that wild? The most amazing thing about the whole national championship opportunity we had, and I hope I will remember this, when I walk away from coaching, is I remember, because obviously you go into December 5th, right? And then I had to help Keisha decide what professional team she wanted to go. So then I had to fly I was fortunate and grateful that she chose me to help her decide what professional team in France she wanted to play for, PSG or Lyon. Then that following weekend was Christmas. So here I am in Target. I mean, I was Target's best shopper. I was throwing things in my cart. This man that you can identify had nothing to do with soccer in his whole lifetime. He says, Coach. And I look, and he goes, I just want you to know that I know nothing about soccer. I don't even know if I love soccer or even like soccer or even hate soccer, but I watched that game because you represented all of us.
Yeah, it was amazing.
And, that to me meant everything. And I was just like, and then that kept happening and happening and happening. And it was amazing. And one other story, my daughters play soccer, and a lot of times you pull up, and if you pull up West Virginia, everyone's like, "Ooh, easy, we're gonna win." They're not good in the state of West Virginia because we're so underdeveloped because the sport's so young.
In the youth leagues, you're talking.
In the youth leagues,
okay,
I'm sorry. So we're playing in San Jose. My daughter's team is playing in North Carolina. And that everyone from West Virginia was so damn proud because we beat UNC when they were down there. So all these parents are texting, and it was just such a big pride thing for soccer to finally, get to the top of the mountain and to beat North Carolina when they're in North Carolina, and all these Tar Heel fans and all those people texting me. It was just to affect so many people in a positive way. It was amazing, even though we lost.
You mentioned your kids a couple times. How did that change how you were as a coach once you had your own kids? Did it?
Yes. I became human. I remember being, yeah, I know, dysfunctional. So, I love tough now, and that's because I have to because of the generation, and it's not a knock to them. I was very tough love early on, but I remember having Sammy on the bus, and I was singing, and all the girls were like, Coach is singing a song. And I'm like, hello, and it was just funny that, So they saw you in a different light. Totally.
That helped you, yeah.
And I saw myself in a different light in their eyes. And I'm like, oh, I'm human, right? I'm not this, push kind of person.
Quick story. This is a true story. I've told this 100 times. One of my daughters was at her soccer camp, and she was battling do I go out? Do I leave my dad? Can I get out there? We finally get her out there. And Nikki starts camp, and it's going. And there's a little teeny, maybe not even 3-year-old that's in her mom's arms, and losing it, crying, the whole thing. Izzo rolls over to this girl. I don't know if you knew him or not. She rolls over, doesn't ask, doesn't say, walks over, grabs the little kid, takes the kid, puts the kid on her hip, and goes out to the middle of the field. And I'm thinking, well, this will be interesting. How's this going to go here? As a dad of somebody that's having a problem getting out there, right? And I'm watching her with this little girl. Well, not only does she have the little girl, Tony, she starts teaching drills. You're teaching drills. You're actually kicking the ball with a little one on your hip, but you didn't bat an eye. It didn't affect you at all. I've got to think you were a much better coach after you had kids for a lot of reasons.
Well, multitasking for sure. And I one thing too that makes my job even more unique here at West Virginia is there was no soccer. So growing the game was another important aspect for me. And to see kids play and fall in love with the game has given me so much. So when those things happen, that also is a big trigger for me to make sure that I grow the game and have the kids fall in love with the game that's given me so much. So, but remember, kids weren't playing.
So, well, that's a great point.
Yeah.
So, there's probably not time to dive into all of it here, but you were instrumental in helping that youth program, which I'm sure some of that's self-serving because you're thinking, all right, get kids in, maybe I can get some of these.
Right.
And you've had great success with West Virginia or area players as well. But that's a whole nother full-time job in and of itself while you're trying to coach the team.
I'm telling you what, I giggle about that too because I was the director of ODP. I was the director of our club. You're just trying to do. But I could never do it again. But at that young age, man, I'll tell you what, it was definitely different hats I was wearing. But it was important, and I never wanted to sit in the ivory tower and think I wasn't good enough to get down and dirty, and that was really important because who I represented, I knew this university meant so much to so many people. So, to obviously represent it and then develop the game hopefully the way it should have been developed was another piece of what motivated me.
Jumping ahead here, World Cup this summer in France, and we always kid on this whenever we do. We say there's always a West Virginia connection no matter where you go in the world to whatever it is. Doesn't have to be sports, whatever, it doesn't matter. Wherever you go, something West Virginia's going to pop. So there's a heavy West Virginia tang on this thing, right?
Yeah. It's amazing. We have 4 athletes, pretty current women that are playing. We have 2 from Canada. Kadisha and Ashley will be representing Team Canada, and now we have Esther Mayaki and Michaela Bam for Cameroon. And they play each other June 10th.
June 10th. Coach is going to take a peek. You going to go over?
Oh, I'm going.
You're going.
It's funny. I
What
don't.
do you wear?
Yeah, what do you wear at
So
the
this is funny. West Virginia.
recruiting? She's recruiting. She's recruiting.
No,
Dumb
I don't
question.
know.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a very neutral color. Because,
Yeah,
but
neither of those
I don't know.
neither of those teams wear that. What's it feel like when you're so you're going to be, and you've been before at these, international events, and you're sitting there, and they're your kids. Yeah. They played for you, and you got to think like, I recruited them, they came through our program, and now they're here on the world's biggest stage. What's that?
It's amazing. I'm just so proud of them. And it's just, for me personally, I'm always working, when I had them. And now I can just enjoy the work. So for me, it's just, I don't know if it's the icing on the cake, but I remember going and watching the last World Cup, and I got to see Ashley Lawrence score the only Canadian goal on the run of play.
I remember that.
And I was like, oh, thank you for being, and I just enjoyed it. It was just, for me, I don't know if it was anything other than just pure, I was so proud, and I just admired how these girls have developed into such professionals.
Do you have the desire to coach on the international level as far as what we're talking about, Olympic-based?
Yeah, I mean, I think...
You're due, aren't you? I mean, your name's got to pop here at
well,
some point.
I think
It
this.
certainly has already popped.
Yeah, I mean,
right? There's no way that hasn't already been.
So, yes,
popping.
I think this. I think that in my philosophy, I've done youth national teams with U.S. Soccer, and then I have my family at home, and then I have my West Virginia family. And I always felt like if you spread yourself too thin, something's going to lose out. And I'm too selfish to lose out from my family, from my West Virginia family. So when that time is right where I feel like I can give everything and feel that I've given everything and not cheated anybody out of anything, maybe that opportunity will come.
Yeah. Had a little Rochester success in the Olympics, huh? From and on the World Cup stage, folks from your area, Abby, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's a soccer. See, people don't realize the Rochester area, big soccer, always has been for years.
Yeah, and I think it's just because of some of the international, we had that international flair there that kind of, migrated there a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, soccer was, definitely. It was
ahead of its time.
It was in Rochester.
Nationally, ahead of its time.
Yeah, Abby's huge success story.
So tell me about the kids that are harassing you at home. We got any players?
Well, I'm a terrible recruiter, so everybody knows. So my daughter, Sammy Brown, she's heading into her senior year, just finishing her junior year. She's not coming to WVU. She's going to another university. So I'm a terrible recruiter. That's what everyone has told me.
Where is she going?
She is heading to Auburn.
Did you offer her?
I've offered her since 8th grade. Probably as soon as I changed her diaper.
What happened?
I think she loves West Virginia, and I think she just wants a different experience.
Yeah.
And this is what I tell people all the time. Her easiest decision would have been to stay home. And I'm so proud of her that she came to this decision to pick the hardest decision to go to Auburn. But it was the right fit. Joe and her took her official visit down there, and she fell in love with it.
Wow. That's interesting. I had one that left. When you grow up here and you're inside, sometimes you got to go like, I got to go. If you're the right personality type, it's time to go. Yeah. Get outside of the door, right?
Yeah, and I tell people this all the time, though. We have everything. We're just spoiled here. Because if you grow up here, you don't take advantage, or you take it for granted too much. But, and what was funny was Sammy came with me when she was 6 months old to Auburn. It was her first visit. So I haven't been there in 16 years. And that was her last visit. So there must have been something going on.
How about that?
Yeah.
Planted that seed too early, didn't you?
I think the coach did.
How good you guys going to be next year?
Young. We're going to be real young. And I'm not going to be, Lou Holtz and tell you this, but we're going to be really young. But it's exciting. It's definitely going to be a big challenge for me, and I'm excited for the challenge to see what kind of coach I can be for this team. So I'm hoping that On paper, there's no lies about it. We lost Esther, Bianca, Vanessa, so it's a whole freshman back line. It's going to be insane.
Your schedule's crazy all the time.
All the time. Why would anyone schedule Stanford and Penn State? I mean, stupid.
Every year you guys do that.
Stupid. But, I'd have such a better record. But at the end, that's and you guys know this, failure is your best learning tool.
Yeah. Going back to what you said about you consider yourself a failure because, you haven't won a national championship. I heard Billy Donovan say after he won 2, he said, after I won the second one, he said, I became so depressed and numb because I thought that would make me happy, but it didn't. And then I realized that's not necessarily the fun. The fun of it is building a staff and going on the journey. That's actually the most enjoyable thing. It's not if you went, that doesn't make everything happy.
But isn't that hard to say when you haven't done that?
Yeah.
I mean, he's got the 2, so he can say that. I think that's harder to say when you're still trying to climb the mountain and get there.
Yes and no. It would be, he wouldn't need to say that. He could say, yeah, man, I won 2. It was the greatest feeling in my life. But he said, I was so bummed out. It took me forever to get over that until I realized that that's not. And then this. All coaches will tell you this. The losses are what they remember. They don't remember the wins. All right? And it's the relationships that you remember much more than the wins as time goes on. That's what coaches will always tell you when it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're so...
That's the hard part when it's done.
Yeah.
It's hard to see that when you're in it.
Yeah,
and you're
when
living
you're in it.
and
Oh,
you're
yeah,
winning,
absolutely.
and there's a game coming, and I got to win it, and then there's another game.
There's no reflection.
Yeah,
and I try to tell myself that after every season, just reflect. But you can't because it's the next and the next
Right.
and the next and the next.
Time never stops, especially when you start this business when you're 23 years old. That's one of the best. That's
Naive.
So here we go. She went from a kid that was just looking for a free sandwich and just a free
6-inch.
6 inches.
No, it was 12-inch.
It was
12 inch.
but you busted it in half so you could save it.
That's right.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. Did you enjoy yourself?
I did. I mean, and again, I learned so much because I made so many mistakes, and I was so lucky that there wasn't social media and there wasn't all these things out there. And I, sometimes, I really, have such empathy for some of these coaches that there's a camera in their face, there's a mic in their mouth, there's all these things where they got to be superhuman all the time. And, I was very fortunate that culture was different when I started. But I wouldn't trade it in for the world. I've learned so much, and it's who I've become, and it was my journey. It was hard. It was fun. I wouldn't trade it in, but I don't know if I could do it again.
Yeah. Well, it's the pot. We learn from going into the potholes. That's what we learn. We learn from hitting the potholes and coming out of them. That's what you really got to do.
Right.
I really appreciate your time.
I had fun, guys.
Awesome,
guys and gals.
See, we told you this would be fun.
Just another happy customer. I mean, she happens to be episode 116.
Lucky 116.
Lucky, yeah. Just remember that number. Play it on the lottery. That's what you need to do. And don't forget that our program has been brought to us by Wheeling Island Hotel Casino Racetrack. We're on Friday, June 14. Mini Kiss is coming, the hottest, littlest band in the world. All the big hits. Detroit Rock City. I Was Made for Loving You. Rock and Roll All Night. And a whole lot more. Tickets just $15. Available through the Wheeling Island gift shop or check them out through Ticketmaster. Music's on. Nikki.
Change that read. Every time you read that, I have to say Beth.
Beth, yeah, I know.
Just change
Beth.
the read. Insert it next time. I want you to start
and
including Beth.
And Beth. Beth.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Nikki, thanks again.
Thank you.
Nikki Izzo-Brown, Brad Howe. We're out. Episode 116. 3 guys before the game. Take care, everybody. See you down the road.